Landlords providing social housing. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from domain.com.au which is discussing, well, landlords who are essentially expected to provide social housing. Because, well, they can't evict their renters and a lot of the renters have got government permission to not pay rent. We'll have to see how this manifests in the value of some of these investment properties. Who would have expected this would have been the case even a year or two ago? You would have been laughed at as a nutter. So, private landlords effectively expected to provide social housing to renters, experts warn. Mum and dad landlords have been co-opted into providing social housing and were unprepared for an event like the pandemic, experts have said. And this is the thing, here in Australia, we don't have big corporations owning lots of housing. A lot of it is just small investors. We're property obsessed here. Most of the wealth of our nation is in property, is in housing. People buy one after the other. They pay, interest only and just bank on the capital growth to just let them go into retirement. And sadly, it's not working out as the dream people expected. Australia's private rental system allows landlords to own a cash flow negative investment property with the promise of deducting losses from their taxable income through negative gearing tax concessions and later make capital gains. See, this is the problem. The problem with this is, with negative gearing, is that it incentivizes people to invest in property making a loss because, well, you can make good money. Because there's capital gains to be made. Because the capital gains go up because people are competing for properties to invest in to make a loss to offset their tax. Because they're going to lose the money anyway. Giving it to the tax man is a loss to you. Less capacity for you to save. You can't trust the government to have something set aside for you in your old age anyway. They'll just piss it away. So you might as well put it into a loss-making property. And because we pay such high taxes in this country, more and more people are looking at ways to reduce their tax. So that's what they do. They funnel it all into here. So then that results in a nation where we're property obsessed, everything's flowing into property, and our economic complexity slowly goes down. There's less incentive. Why start a business? Why work a job when you can make more on capital gains in this property Ponzi scheme? And Labor tried to remove negative gearing, and I appreciate why they were trying to remove it. But it's going to create even more of it's going to tilt the tables unfairly to another generation. What they need to do is, if they get rid of negative gearing, they should reduce our tax rate to address that lost revenue that they would have gotten. So it all evens out anyway. Just get rid of negative gearing, but then put up the tax-free threshold by another, $30,000 or $40,000, so people get more money in their pockets. What do you reckon? Think it'll ever happen? Not in a million years, but well, maybe now. There can be discussions around these things. So landlords have been asked to negotiate discounts with tenants who have lost work in the pandemic and moratoriums established to keep tenants in their homes even if they do not pay rent. Investment property ownership was also sold as a retirement plan to those fearing state care. Better Renting Executive Director Joel Dignam told the Domain. Well, yeah, I mean, who can trust the state to take care of you? Before you get the all... I think a lot of people are realizing with these new, income tests or savings tests that are now in place or being reinstituted for the dole, for New Start, that this money that you've been giving to the government to put aside, and it's there to help out those down on their luck. You've got to really be down on your luck, guys. You've got to really be down on your luck. And then you get the problem with the poverty trap. I think we need to just change the culture that people realize it's not for everyone. These support mechanisms, they're emergency things. So you still got to have your own money set aside. And then people will realize, well, why am I paying this much money to the government for these things? I'd rather put a portion of my tax in a investment account or in a mutual fund and just let it sit there, so if I'm unemployed I can draw from that. Wouldn't that be more useful than paying it for the government for them to take care of us when times get tough? So this is a bizarre way to provide essential service like housing, he said. For a lot of renters, it means They are trying to make a secure, decent home, but their landlord is oblivious to their obligations and to the renters' rights. It's also a problematic situation for amateur landlords. They think about investment as a way to beef up their retirement income without considering their responsibility for another human being and their family. This crisis shows we'd be better off if our private rental sector didn't depend so much on small-scale landlords who are not prepared for the responsibility and commitment. UNSW professor and chair of urbanism Nicole Grana agreed that this housing policy was less than ideal. I'm sympathetic to landlords in the sense that it's government policy to make mum and dad's landlords like social housing providers, she said. They've done nothing wrong. It's been government policy for the past 40 years to essentially outsource the social housing system to mum and dad landlords. They're doing what the government was encouraging them to do. He said on the whole, mum and dad landlords were participating in a system that was not designed to benefit them. Well, yeah, I mean, how many people actually make money on property? We had one regular viewer from WA. He said he works with a lot of developers, and he goes, a lot of people don't make any money in property. They don't make any money in property. Just think about that, because all the costs associated with it. Some landlords may support these tax schemes because they benefit themselves, not realizing that the wealthy elite benefit much more, he said. According to modeling from NatSem, about 50% of the benefit of negative gearing goes to households with incomes in the top 20%. For the capital gains tax discount, about 80% of the benefit is to the top 20% of households. Well, yeah, they also pay the most tax, so they can get the most benefit. That's how our tax system works. Advocates for landlords do not think the situation is fair either. Real Estate Institute of Australian President Adrian Kelly said the government should build more social housing rather than expect investors to be de facto state housing providers. Or the government can just get out of it all. More land can be opened up, so more developments can shoot up. And then if you remove negative gearing, there's going to be less demand for these loss-making houses, then the prices will correct. You know, maybe the government needs to stop chucking money at housing left, right, and centre to prop it up. But I mean, this is the thing with you've got different groups all competing with the same political or with the same leverage to try and manipulate our political leaders to get the best for their group, and then in the end we're all screwed, all of us. And the smart ones at the top just cream off the cream and take all the good fat. We're left with the rest. One thing I think would have avoided landlords providing free and cheap housing during the pandemic is if we had built enough social and affordable housing, he said. As a result of that, it's the property owners that have to pick up the tab. It's not the private sector's responsibility to provide free housing. Well, it isn't the government's anyway. It's charities. Charities choose to do that. They're different things. A government isn't a charity. Mr. Kelly said the saving graces for landlords in a poor financial position during the pandemic were mortgage pausers, JobKeeper, and JobSeeker. I mean, it just shows you how to the hilt everything is. Governments have also offered tax incentives for landlords. For example, the Victorian government cut land tax for landlords who discounted rent, with Treasurer Tim Pallas previously saying that nobody should be worried about losing a roof over their head right now. Melbourne Asset Management Director and licensed real estate agent Cameron Osborne said lending conditions were creating some volatility, but given that landlords were investors, the buck stopped with them. And, well, he's right. You can't use the term unfair. They made an investment with their eyes open, but no one could have predicted the pandemic, he said. 20 years ago, only wealthy people bought property. Now they can use the equity in their homes and their incomes haven't increased. Mr. Osborne said the promise of capital gains was less certain than before, and he was worried about leveraging some property owners had become, or how leveraged they had become. I mean, that is a big concern. Values have stagnated for a while, and the investment class properties have in some cases lost money, he said. We're seeing that in Sydney, 15% down for some investment units. The only thing that's been the saviour is the low interest rates. If it wasn't for the rates, these people would have fallen over ages ago. Mr. Osborne said being a landlord was less safe than it once was. Those who have been doing it for 10 years are a lot better off than those who have been doing it for 5 years, he said. In the past 10 years, they would have developed some equity in their property. Professor Guran said a further push into this strategy, through moves to repeal responsible lending laws. Yeah, well, it depends if you look at it. I don't know if it's going to have that much of an impact as people are saying. If you look at the banks are still going to be rigorous in their own way. Just some of the requirements that they put on the banks. I mean, are we such a nanny state that people... Well, okay, yeah. No, we are such a nanny state. People don't need to take responsible for anything. People don't need to have... There's no expectation of people to have any savings. Yeah, what am I kidding? Runaway property prices put people into unsustainable housing debt, she said. It suggests that lending has put them into a precarious situation. This is a reason why suggestions to loosen the macroprudential restrictions is troubling. Mum and dad landlords looking to protect their position would be better off lobbying for tenants' rights rather than those that benefit elites more than themselves, the professor said. They should join the tenants' union and advocate for decent rental support, she said. It would help them secure a decent income and make sure they can house people in a stable way. What do you think, everyone? What do you think? Do you think people have been tricked into providing social housing? Or are the rental costs that a lot of people paying just showing that it's ludicrous to even consider some of the stuff social housing? Do you think the landlords are poor victims, or are they going in with their eyes wide open? As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.